revisiting here the geology. You can see the Mazoa anticline and its cross features where the drill holes are. The Maroodi anticline. Those are important components of our descriptive story here because each one of these anticlines exposes the key stratigraphy. The mineralization, the gold, is localized near the axes and along the limbs in structure in favorable units. And each one of these anticlines brings these rocks up to where we can see them in the saprolite. This is a compilation of 1 to 3 meter auger drill holes that look below the transported overburden. All the values here that are not black dots represent values of more than half a gram of gold per ton across more than 1 meter. You can visualize these red dots as being the footprint of the ultimate optimized open pits that we see developing here. It's important to remember that these, where they're very closely spaced, are 100-meter lines. Down at the lower part of the picture, there's a 500-meter scale bar. You can focus your attention on the location of the Mazoa and the Peace Creek targets, which are the location of the historic resource estimates. And I want to point out that the rest of these anomalies, which are much more extensive and in most cases much more intense, are the opportunities for future growth. We believe that we're looking here at the footprint of a large opportunity, much larger than the historic resources would indicate. Our programs have been systematic soil rock and pan concentrate geochem on Paine Mountains, 5,100 meters of mechanized auger drilling to look below the overburden, lots of trenching so that we can unravel the structure, and the ultimate result was a new paradigm, taking what was essentially stalled evaluation of the Mazoa target and increased it to consider several other targets that really substantially increased things. The most important developments were now we recognize the stratigraphic and structural controls. We've identified the distribution of the host sequence, and we recognize the role of structural control and cover in concealing targets and providing us with extensions to it. This is core through the Mazoa Hill target. This is some of Vanessa's core. You can see here some values. You can see here the brecciated ironstones and andesites, beautiful values across this intercept. And this is a structurally controlled target in a stratigraphically permissive host rock. This is a cross-section of the Mazoa anticline showing you structural thickening of this host sequence and also structural repetition. It helps you to understand that not only is the Mazoa anticline subject to extensions along both trends, but it's also subject to repetition as we follow this through the folds. That's very important because historically all the work was focused on the one lens with no understanding of how to grow beyond it. These are some of the drill holes that define the Mazoa Hill target. I won't go through them chapter and verse. You can see the numbers. They're impressive intercepts. In many cases, they were terminated in good values. What's very important for us is that this is the style of material that we're looking for in the rest of our work. We believe it's a good beginning, but it's only a small part of the opportunity. In order to see these rocks, in order to understand the structure, we had to make some deep trenches and map the rocks. In many cases, the first 1 or 2 meters is completely massive red material. We can't see any structure. In some cases, it's barren, even where it overlies good mineralized material. We needed to look at the rocks. We needed to map the structure. We needed to reinvent this in order to make it bigger. This is Trado drill. You can see it's man-portable. These are 4 local guys. It's a 2-stroke engine, drills to 8 meters, makes an undisturbed sample. It cost me about $5 a meter to get these shallow drill holes into the upper parts of the oxide zone. It's probably the most cost-effective way for us to see where these deposits are going with a minimal environmental imprint. These large outcrops are something that we found in 07 and 08 that really hadn't been recognized properly before. These are cross-cutting tabular breccias. They range from 60 to 100 meters wide. We've seen them in segments between 2 and 3.5 kilometers long, and in some cases, they have excellent gold values. They haven't been trenched, they haven't been drilled, but parts of them have been hydraulicked for gold recovery by the small miners. Some of these are important targets, and some of them are actual structural distractions because they don't have the same kind of values as we have in the stratiform deposits in the host sequence. This is a geological compilation showing northwest trending breccia dikes and northeast trending folded siliceous horizons. It's very important that you understand why the Maroodi target that is the focus for this compilation hasn't been tested properly before. The section A prime gives you a clear idea of what it is we're dealing with. This cross-section is based on our trenching, historic drilling, and our interpretations of the host sequence. The dark reddish rocks are massive amphibolite. They are occasionally mineralized, but they're not a good host rock. The lighter colored sequence with the red streaks in it is our mineralized sequence, our host sequence. If you look carefully, you'll see the values in our trenches, and you'll see the width of the mineralized material. You can also see the folding and the fact that much of this is hidden. There are 3 drill holes in this cross-section that were put in by previous operators. None of them tested the right sequence, although some of them were within tens of meters of the right place. Ironically, they didn't really have enough information about the stratigraphy to sort out where they should be putting their holes. And so the target remains ready to advance and relatively untested. This fairly busy map shows in purple the locations of the drill holes that will be our first major drill campaign in 2010. This is a 10,000-meter program focused on taking the west limb of the Maroudi anticline, turning it from something which is strongly indicative to a resource that we can add to our inventory. That is our goal, and with that, plus trenching and drilling on the big oxide breccia zones, we think we can multiply the resources that have been on the record historically. This is where we want to focus our energies. We do gold panning and mineralogy when we're in the field. We quite often need to wait a long time for assays, and so following the gold grain counts is an important part of our strategy. This is the oxide breccia, in some places quite well mineralized, in some cases very extensive. We think this is an important addition to the inventory, and we'll be taking a fairly careful look at this with trenching and drilling during 2010. This is an overview of the license map. The Maroudi Mountain Mining License, which is the first new mining license issued since Omai, which is a major milestone in Guyana, and the Paint Mountain Prospecting License, which shows essentially extensions of the same sort of material through several fold repeats and represents tremendous growth for room for expansion as we continue to evaluate the projects. This 47 slide is a review of the drill holes. This is what we've inherited. Some very good work, some very encouraging work, and also some evolving ideas. The first company that recognized the importance of the ironstones was Norman Mines. Romanex and Sutton and Romanex and Vanessa focused on one lens to try to turn it into a mine. And what we've recognized is that it's an encouraging lens, which is the Mazoa Hill target, but it's not enough. And we're back, we're going to multiply that. So this is where we are now. Rexma has informed us that they will proceed with production in the first quarter of 2010. Our National Instrument 43101 compliant report is now CDR filed and available to the shareholders. We recognize that the west limb of the Maroudi anticline is our first priority for a drill-off. It's well defined based on geochemistry and structure, and we think that'll be the sources of our next million-plus ounces. We think it's very, very important. We will continue to do trenching and drilling to develop new targets on the oxide breccias, on the other sectors. We will continue to do sequenced exploration on the Paint Mountain target to expand and get it ready for drilling. We believe this is important, and in fact, it will rank historically as one of the most important districts in Guyana, and we're very pleased to be leading the charge on it. When we have this information late in 2010, then I believe we'll be in a position to provide a good representative estimate of the resource opportunity at the project. In review, I want to remind the investing public that Shoreham has a lot on the table, but the strategy is fairly simple. We have our Canadian projects, which were selected because they had a heritage of high-quality data and resources on which we can base expansion programs. In Guyana, we have Maroudi, which we believe is our flagship, and we have the other projects which we're using to create joint ventures, growing the company through a generative model so that we have the strength and the vitality to be able to develop all of these things in due course. Fate's been good for us because we're well placed to take advantage of what we now see as being growing enthusiasm for gold in this market and also for the geological opportunities represented by Guyana. And I think this means that we have some very special investment opportunity for the public. That concludes our presentation. I wish to thank you for joining us and encourage all of you to take this opportunity to post any questions you have about the company. For those of you who are watching this presentation at a scheduled time, please post your questions now. For those of you that watch it later, please post your questions, and we'll be closely in touch, and we'll get back to you for our responses. Thank you.